It was June 28th, 1998. DMX had just dropped It's Dark and Hell is Hot. The biggest movie of the year, Armageddon, was on the way. South Park had taken over, and most importantly, Mankind and The Undertaker were gonna wrestle in the second ever Hell in a Cell match, and nothing was ever gonna be the same. The late 90s were defined by pop culture becoming more crude, more violent, and darker than ever, and the WWF was in the middle of it all. Gone were the days of the fun, colorful WWF fans were used to. Instead, it was the era of pushing the envelope. Teenagers and adults tuned into Raw every single week to see how crazy can wrestling get, and the company provided. But as the product got edgier and more violent, as the fans got more bloodthirsty every week, it reached a point where there had to be a climax, there had to be a peak, and that was June 28th, 1998. King of the Ring, the most insane pay-per-view of all time. When King of the Ring 1998 went on the air and pyro blasted through the arena, all the fans that were standing up and cheering, they didn't want work rate, they didn't care about a 5-star classic, they wanted bloodshed. See, in 98, they already had an Inferno match, they had people falling off stages in dumpsters, they had seen a lot, but they wanted more. And boy, did they get it. For the first hour and 45 minutes, this was the most typical pay-per-view of the era. Quick matches, angles, and not hurt angles, promos on pay-per-views multiple times, Crash TV through and through, and the biggest thing that happened was Ken Shamrock beating The Rock, making him tap and becoming King of the Ring as the crowd jumped for joy. But when it was time for the Hell in a Cell match and the arena got dark and the cell was being lowered and it was time for the second Hell in a Cell match ever, that was when everything changed. Mankind's music played and the crowd didn't make much noise, but out came Mick Foley holding a chair, and as Jerry Lawler on commentary legit says, quote, "This match has so much riding on it, JR, that the loser might not even stop at the hospital, they might go straight to the morgue." Add in the fact that the tagline of the entire pay-per-view was "off with their heads," it just shows how different wrestling had gotten and how different it is now. Mankind climbs up the Hell in a Cell, fans roar, and before he can even get sorted out on the top, Taker's music hits. The Undertaker was making his entrance as all the edgy teenagers had their lighters in the air as Mankind, Mick Foley, was 20 feet above him. Now, the amount of things that had to take place for it to get to this point are crazy. This, for all intents and purposes, could have been just a normal Hell in a Cell match. You know, the match we've seen probably 30 times since then. But see, at this point, the fans were not ready for that. The original plan for this show was for the match to be Austin vs. Mankind 3 for the title in the Hell in a Cell. But the company felt that after 2 pay-per-view main events, that wasn't special enough, and the fans had enough of that series. So of course, Mick Foley gets taken out of the title match, and he's obviously pissed. You know, he's hurt. He wants to prove himself and get back into the top spot. He's motivated to do something legendary. Add in the fact that the first Hell in a Cell match was a 5-star classic, and Mick definitely wants to follow that up, but he knows he's not Shawn Michaels, so he has to offer something very different. And then there's The Undertaker. He can have great matches, but at this point, homie has a broken ankle, so he's compromised. Add in where they were as a society, add in what the fans wanted, how bloodthirsty the fans had become at this point. It was the perfect mix, and before you know it, there's a 300-pound man standing on top of the cell waiting for another 300-pound man to climb up and join him. And that's exactly what happens. Undertaker climbs up that cell, the fans go mental, and these two go at it. There is a combined 600 pounds on the cell. They're 20 feet in the air, and the crazy part is you can see the cell structure giving away. That cage was now built for this. Their feet are sinking into it. At any moment, there could be a disaster. Foley gets him a chair shot. He's in control. And look, it even breaks through at one point. The cell almost breaks through, and both men could have fell into the ring, and it could have been a double GG. But it's fine. Why not continue? You know, people paid $40 for this. People paid hundreds of dollars for tickets for this. We have to sacrifice. And less a minute into this so-called match, Foley starts tumbling on the edge. Fans get louder and louder. Honestly, we get history. Bang, Foley goes flying. Undertaker tosses Foley off the edge, no padding, nothing to break his fall. The monitors weren't even removed from the announce table, and Mick Foley goes bombs away, and the crowd goes nuts, and JR just says, "That killed him." As JR is yelling that he might be broken in half for all the fans at home, the fans in the arena are jumping for joy. They're jumping like Mary Lemieux had just won the cup or something. But nah, there was no cup. Mick Foley was just dead. Yo, there is not a care in the world by the fans. Oh, he might be hurt. Oh, this is bad. No, there is nothing somber. The fans love it. And we get this iconic replay that lives on forever. I used to have this clip saved on my PSP in 2008, 10 years after this match took place, and I would watch that clip religiously at school with my friends. That clip has been played probably 1,000 times just by myself. But yo, at that moment when it happened, nobody even knew if this man was alive. Terry Funk comes out, one of his best friends, who by the way was the one who jokingly told Mick Foley a few weeks before the match, "Oh, Cactus, maybe you should get thrown off the cell." He was joking, Mick took it personally. Out comes the EMTs, the referees, they start raising the cage so the stretcher can fit through the ringside area, which by the way is a crazy visual. Foley is moving, he gets put on the stretcher, somehow he was even standing, his mask is off, shout out Future, and Taker was just standing on top of the cell like the Grim Reaper. So the match is over, right? Foley is lucky to be alive, lucky to be breathing, he has a broken shoulder, but it could be worse, right? The fans are chanting, Undertaker. Undertaker. They should be chanting Foley, and that's how you know how it was such a different time. They don't care about Foley. There was no clapping once he was moving. It wasn't somber. There was no Foley chants when he was getting taken to the back. They couldn't care less. Nothing. They didn't care. They were happy he almost died. To them, Undertaker was the man. But Foley was gonna make sure that he left as the man. He was gonna make sure he got the chants and the claps. Because wrestling is fake, these men will always go above and beyond to make it real. And that's the irony of wrestling. No real athlete would ever do anything like this or half of the stuff wrestlers do, but because it's fake, they feel like they have to. The cell begins to come down, Foley is halfway to the back, and well, apparently it wasn't enough. Foley is standing up, he is pushing away the help, and this crackhead makes his way back, and the fans begin to cheer. And ladies and gentlemen, these two men both climb up the cell. Broken shoulder and all, legacy on the line, cell's about to collapse any second, and bang, choke slam. Well, somebody stop the damn match. The cell gives way, Foley goes through it, chair hits him on the way down just in case he has not enough damage, Mr. Foley, and the EMTs and refs run for their lives. Before he's even on the ground, they were running in there. I don't think this is what Nike meant when they said just do it, but Foley did it. This was never supposed to happen. Apparently the cell was never supposed to give way like that. It broke in the worst way possible and made sure that Foley got clapped. Now you would assume it's done, it's over, please just end the damn match. Nah, why would we do that? Taker climbs down, chokeslams Terry Funk, and these two maniacs were gonna have a match. How Foley was moving to this day makes no sense. Foley wanted to be remembered. Oh, he wanted his legacy cemented? You already did it, pal. It's enough, it's done. But no, they felt the need to continue the match. Mick Foley somehow moves, he somehow takes bumps, Undertaker's doing dives, and Mick Foley eventually somehow is able to do a pile driver on Taker on a chair. You know, he drops a leg on the chair. Hogan is in WCW all concerned. You stealing my finish, dude? But even that wasn't enough. The cell is literally dangling. There is tacks on the floor, and of course, Foley gets choke slammed. At this point, I say, what else can be done? Fans are louder than ever at this point. Bang, tombstone. Yo, no matter how much time passes, it is just the most absurd thing you'll ever see in American mainstream wrestling. Sure, you can find some crazy clips for CZW or someone's backyard, I understand, but for the WWF to run this in 1998, compare this to what they were doing in 95, it's crazy. I don't think there's ever been a more watched match in wrestling history. Yeah, there's been shows that had bigger audiences, bigger buy rates, bigger ratings, but this match has outlasted generations. I was born 2 months after this match took place, and my whole life, this match has been ingrained in my brain. Me and my friends used to get together and watch this in shitty 240p on Google Video back when that was a thing. I used to have this download on my PSP, like I said, just in case I'm out and I felt the need to watch this. You know what? I'm gonna go watch Foley die. This match, if you want to call it that, is iconic. Think of all the fun we've had growing up playing Hell in a Cell matches with our action figures or video games. All those spots throwing people off, the slams in the middle, it all came from this. This just could never be replicated, and 30 years later, it's still untouched. We've seen people jump off the cell, do dives, do this, do that, but nothing has ever come close because this happened at the perfect time where society was, how many people were watching, and what the people wanted from their wrestling, and also what lengths the company and wrestlers would go. And as Foley somehow stood up and walked away with the help of many others, the bloodthirsty crowd finally clapped and chanted, Foley, Foley, Foley. He got his cheers, and not only was wrestling never the same as one, we had basically seen the peak of how far wrestling can go, especially on the mainstream level. There were no safety precautions, there was nothing in case, you know, he gets cooked. It was literally like Rocky, if he dies, he dies. The monitors weren't removed, there was no padding under the announce table, the ring was as hard as ever, it wasn't softened and ready for the bump. It was literally, if he dies, he dies. So not only was wrestling never the same, but yo, Foley was never the same either. King of the Ring, 1998. And the most insane part about all this was, as Foley went to the back and got checked out, as thousands of fans worldwide just saw something they would never forget, this wasn't even the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, we ain't going out like that. This is the Attitude Era. These fans want more. Kane versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the title, but not just in a normal match. No. Why would it be that? Why would it just be a normal match? These fans want destruction. They want first blood, and that's what we're gonna get. And to make things even better, Kane told the world on the Go Home show on Monday Night Raw 5 days before the show that if he lost the main event and he didn't walk out champion, I will set myself on fire. Ladies and gentlemen, 1998 wrestling. Oh, how I wish I was a teenager during this era. Yeah, I told you it gets dark. Well, with Kane in the ring and Jerry Can surrounding the ring just in case, he loses and wants to set himself on fire, the glass breaks and out comes the GOAT. Stone Cold comes out and it's unlike anything you've ever heard. It's not like the loudest pop, but it's primal. It's like their savior was coming down. And these two just go crazy. Fans are rabid, Austin tweaks, Kane no-sells everything. The match will only end when one of them is busted wide open. Now, how will anyone know if Kane is? Who knows? Who cares? Now, by the way, Austin going into this match had spent 3 days in the hospital. He had a severe fever, dehydration, and a staph infection in his elbow, which is why it was taped up. So should he be wrestling? Probably not. Was he wrestling? Of course. Now, you would assume after this, after all these stipulations are going on, we almost saw a man die, fall 20 feet from the air. You would assume that would be enough, right? No, it's the Attitude Era where we're only beginning. The Hell in a Cell starts getting lowered in the middle of the match. Randomly, it becomes a Hell in a Cell match. Yo, what a time. You definitely get your money worth. At one point, Kane is just dangling. He's just hanging on it. And then it just becomes ludicrous. The crowd loves it. But once again, that wasn't enough. Having a Attitude Era main event wasn't enough. Austin versus Kane wasn't enough. One man still hadn't sacrificed himself enough because, ladies and gentlemen, just when you thought you had seen it all, just when you thought you'd seen enough carnage, out comes Mick Foley smiling. I am not making this up. He was more excited than a fat kid running for an ice cream truck. What is often forgotten is that somehow, someway, out comes Mankind in the main event. This man should be in the hospital. He shouldn't be anywhere near he should be banned from a wrestling ring. But less than 20 minutes after his match ended, he was back at it like a crack addict. Why was he interfering in the main event? So many people forget this. Everyone knows about his match, but the fact that this man came to interfere in the main event, once again, like the title of the video, insane. You just know that when he did get an x-ray, like, his insides probably look like a nuclear war zone. Now at this point, you're like, please Foley, just go to sleep, play dead or be dead, whatever you need to do. There is no need for this. But then out comes the Undertaker. Foley is between Austin and Taker, and it's like, please Foley, no, not this way. Thankfully, Foley moves out of the way. Austin eats the chair shot. Mankind stumbles away. Undertaker cleans house. But because of the chair shot, Austin gets cucked. Because once the referee gets up after all the chaos, one of these men is busted wide open, and it wasn't Kane. Just like that, Kane becomes champion, and King of the Ring 1998 goes off the air with Kane on the floor, but champion. And honestly, if that doesn't make you want to tune into Raw the next night, nothing will. Listen, I told you that this was insane. What Foley did on this night, just legendary. And we know that, but the fact that he somehow interfered in the main event is just shocking, and it just does not get mentioned enough, as much as it should have. This really was the perfect time for something like this to go down, and the impact of this just ringed on forever. Foley going into this match admittedly was insecure about losing his spot and never reaching back to where he was, but after this, he would go on to become one of the most beloved wrestlers ever. Before you know it, he would be champion, be in Chef Boyardee commercials. He was truly beloved, and that all changed here by doing what he did. But yo, listen, I just wish I was old enough to watch this live and experience it. I can't imagine the feeling of going to school the next day and talking to your friends about, oh my god, did you see that? Despite never growing up in the Attitude Era, and despite oh they didn't have 5-star matches, they didn't have this, I don't care. I love the Attitude Era, and I wish I was just a little bit older to live it. I don't think wrestling has ever been as addicting as this era. King of the Ring 1998, the night where Mick Foley sacrificed. And once again, that's the irony of it. Because wrestling is fake, because apparently they're trained how to fall, these wrestlers, these athletes go so much further than any real athlete ever would. Because it's fake, these wrestlers don't know when it's time to stop. So at that point, is it really fake? Well, that's a topic for another video. What a time it was to not be alive, because sadly, I was negative 2 months old. In the comments down below, let me know what memories do you have of this match, whether it was in 98, 2008, or 2018. It is so iconic, probably the most iconic wrestling match of all time in my opinion. Something that I've always wanted to talk about on the channel. I know this has been talked about to death, but it was time for me to touch on it. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy. Tried to keep it a quick one. It's your boy Pav, aka Wrestling Gifts. I will see you guys with the next one. Till then though, see you later.